This one's wife. Legal action. Victoria Ward writes in The Telegraph, Palace considers legal action after Piers Morgan names royal racists. Royal source says all options are open as presenter identifies two members of the royal family caught up in Harry and this one's wife race row. I've explained to you before that sending a letter before claim, a letter before action, embarking upon litigation is commonly found with narcissists because this is an excellent way for them to assert control over somebody else. Naturally, there are many non-narcissists that get involved in litigation themselves. It may well be as a consequence of the poor behaviour of a narcissist doing something, which means that they've got no option other than go to the law. I regularly explain to people that where you're faced with a situation that allows a remedy in law, that you ought to consider utilising the law to get what you want, because ordinarily you're not going to be able to force, threaten, cajole or persuade the narcissist to do what you want with any guarantee of success. But the law has teeth. So long as you have the relevant cause of action and that you have good evidence to support it, meaning that you've got high prospects of success and that you can afford to take the action, then you ought to do so, to compel the narcissist to do what it is you require, whether it's to keep the narcissist away from you by way of restraining order, recover money from the narcissist, recover property, prevent the narcissist from taking action against you in some instances, sorting out arrangements with children, progressing a divorce. There are many instances where the most effective thing that you can do is utilize the legal process against the narcissist. Some narcissists just ignore it, resulting in judgments being entered against them in default or them being arrested for a failure to attend before court. Lesser narcissists are most usually likely to do that. Mid-rangers see it as a platform, and they see it as an opportunity to stand on a stage and say, woe is me, I'm being picked on. They will often commence litigation themselves, utilising it as a means to try and force the non-narcissist victim into giving them what they want. Many pieces of seemingly intractable litigation involve a narcissist. When it goes against them, as it invariably will, they will not accept the outcome, lodging ridiculous appeals, seeking stays of execution, seeking continuances and adjournments, delays and extensions with regard to the provision of information. Where you are involved in litigation with a narcissist, you need to move it forward as fast as you possibly can to get to that point of judgment and enforcement to ensure you get what you need. In this instance, there is a suggestion that legal action might be utilised by the King and others against the Duchess of Sussex and Omid Scobie. Buckingham Palace is considering legal action after Piers Morgan named the two so-called royal racists on UK television. A royal source revealed, we're considering all options. Morgan revealed the names of the two members of the royal family caught up in a racism row involving the Duke and Duchess of Sussex after their identities were published in the Dutch translation of a new royal book. As copies of Omid Scobie's Bell End Game were urgently pulled from the shelves in the Netherlands, Morgan said it was nonsensical that the names should be accessible in another country, but not in the United Kingdom. He told viewers of his talk TV show Uncensored on Wednesday evening that he didn't believe any racist comments were ever made by any members of the royal family. But he said he was sharing the names in order to allow an open debate about what really happened. Now again, as a narcissist, what Piers Morgan is doing is seeking to control his readership by taking this controversial step. There'll be many that agree with it. And as I've explained before, just because he's a narcissist doesn't mean he's wrong in what he's saying or what he's doing. But his motivation for such activity is that subconscious need for control and fuel, character traits and residual benefits. He's not doing it because he intrinsically believes in there being the necessity of an open debate, but rather his narcissism instructs him to put that forward as a plausible reason for making mention of the two names, which in turn then allows him to court fuel by way of people's responses and to control them as a consequence of making mention of it. This one's wife is painted black in the world of Piers Morgan, and each time she comes up on the radar, his narsum compels him to take action against her. This means that invariably he comments critically about her, but with justification. He utilises the truth of her behaviours as a means to assert control over her. The report continues by explaining the New York Post also named the two royals whose identities were widely circulated online, but the king shrugged off the furore as he ploughed on with official duties in Dubai, where he will address the COP28 environmental summit. As he arrived for a 30-minute bilateral meeting with Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on Thursday morning, the two men shook hands warmly, and the president asked after his well-being. "I'm all right, very much, just about," the king replied. Sources insisted that the monarch was entirely focused on the summit. Now, of course, the comments that have been made by Scobie on behalf of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will have threatened Charles's need for control. He will have exploded upon hearing this. He'll have exploded because it will threaten his need for control. He'll have exploded because that control has been threatened by telling an untruth about him, either in the terms that he never said what he's accused of, or what he did say has been twisted to make it seem like he's a racist. He has many faults, but racism isn't one of them. Indeed, his track record demonstrates that as part of his facade management, he's sought to harmonise race relations rather than actually behave in the way that Harry and this one's wife has by causing controversy. Indeed, if you were to label anybody racist, you'd be suggesting that it was the Duchess of Sussex as a consequence of her repeated need to make issues where none exist in relation to race. Nevertheless, the suggestion by Scobie has threatened the king's need for control. He's not going to contact him direct and say, "Now listen to me, you plastic-faced little runt. I'm going to pop down there and pull your ears off." No. There's a possibility that legal action might be taken, and I'm sure many of you would be willing the king to do that, and it remains on the table as an option by which he could assert control over Scobie and possibly then have an indirect impact upon the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. At this juncture, he is also utilising the stance that has been used by the Prince and Princess of Wales, which is not to make any mention of it, which thus starves this one's wife of the fuel that she craves and gets under her skin. Although, of course, we're not allowed to speculate on the colour of that skin, because that, after all, would be racist. Legal action may well follow, and it'll be a means of asserting control over Scobie. It could result in a ruinous outcome for him, dependent upon the cost, expense, and, of course, the adverse publicity that comes from it. Would he go running to the Sussexes to try and seek help? Quite possibly he would. Would it be forthcoming? No, it wouldn't. This one's wife would assert control over him by cutting him off, as she has done so many times with other people. Once he's served his purpose, he's thrown to the wayside. She has no interest in maintaining him. He would be seen as a liability, and she has no emotional empathy for him. He's simply a useful idiot. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.